No, 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 no. Well, hey everyone, welcome to virtual Thursday's Dire Literary Series. And tonight I've got a friend, a fellow published author on Pierian Springs Press, and also multi-talented writer Elizabeth SEARLE. And let me tell you a little bit about something. You can just go to her website, of course, but it's esearle.webly.com. She writes fiction and scripts. She has a new short story collection, The Drama Room, forthcoming, which is not forthcoming. It's out right now, and it's a great
Right.
collection.
Yeah.
She's had 5 previous books of fiction, a rock opera, a co-writer of the feature film I'll Show You Mine, which I saw a few months ago, and Nancy and Tanya and Nancy, the rock opera. She's just done so much. Celebrities in Disgrace was another book of short stories. A Four-Sided Bed, all award-winning, all wonderful reads. She's just a terrific, terrific author, and I'm going to turn it over to her, and she can read a selection from her new book.
Yay. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, everyone coming to this. Great to see these faces, the ones I can see. And Tim, thank you for always giving a platform to fellow writers. That's so kind of you. So, yes, as Tim said, the book is out. Here it is, The Drama Room. Um, Happy to have it. And it is a collection of stories, and I subtitled it The Drama Room, a collection in 3 acts. So I arranged it kind of taking off on the theater drama theme in 3 acts. And act 1 I called openings. And those stories, there's 4 stories that are from younger characters. Then the middle part is called arias, which is all kinds of strange stuff, including a libretto for my opera and a lot of my more experimental writings. And then the last section is called finales and has older characters. And I'm going to read to you from the beginning, which is one of the younger characters. And it's a story that, like many of the stories in the collection, that it's called The Drama Room. There are a lot of characters who are kind of actressy type people. Some of them are actually actresses, and others have more inner drama. I like to show the cover for that. You can see this young woman sitting there vibrating with inner drama. But also I called it The Drama Room because we live in dramatic times. And one of the things I cover in a number of the stories is COVID and how we were all in our little rooms, sometimes in these little Zoom squares like we are now, and yet having a lot of drama going on, sometimes way too much drama. So this, I'm particularly interested, my own COVID experience involved, my son was in college and kind of lost 2 years of college to COVID. And I know a number of young people went through things that were really hard for them to deal with, and they didn't have the kind of in-person, community life that they could deal with things. So I took some stories like that and I created a story called The Mask of the Red Death. Now, some of you might recognize that there's an Edgar Allan Poe story about plague times. It's a nightmarish Gothic story called The Mask of the Red Death. He spells it Masque in the Gothic style. And my character, teenage girl during COVID, is, she will explain, because it's first person, doing an assignment where she's supposed to write something inspired by The Mask of the Red Death. And what she writes is very personal. It's her own kind of horror story. So I'm just going to read 2 sections from that take about 13 minutes. And one note is that I spell the title, The Mask of the Red Death, Mask, because it's like COVID masks. And Edgar Allan spells it with the Quue. The Mask of the Red Death. The Mask of the Red Death is a story by Edgar Allan Poe the dude with super sad eyes. But I spell mask plain, like the mask that I wore on my last bike ride, plain black. My story, like E.A. Poe's, is set in plague times, set, now. Write a story inspired by one of the classic stories we discussed in class. Only we didn't discuss them in class. Our classes since April were all Zoom, like everything now. But whatever. Here is my story inspired by The Mask of the Red Death. BTW, I guess I should delete this part leading into the story, but maybe I won't. Maybe I just don't care if you pass me or not in this last incomplete. If I ever officially graduate Arlington High School, no matter what, I'm still a member of the doomed COVID-19 class of 2020. My story starts in Granddad's garden, behind what he called his twilight blue bungalow, in pre-twilight, which he called the golden hour, the time when everyone looks their best. In sunny September of 2019, Granddad cut peach-colored roses to give 17-year-old me in a prickly bouquet. Peace roses, he said. Then Granddad told me, matter of fact, you'll be a beauty one day. You, I mean me, but I like saying you because it makes this story about someone not me. You always felt pretty in that garden in the sunsetty light. You and Granddad, both bathed in gold. You held the peachy peace roses. Granddad brought out his serious camera, the one he'd used in his Boston portrait studio. He took your picture over and over. One came out so cool with your long hair lit up all tawny gold. You used it as your first, maybe last, Tinder photo. Hey, I am getting off track from the assignment here, but I want to show why EAP's The Mask of the Red Death made me cry, which almost nothing does anymore since I got all cried out back in April. I wish to God, like Granddad used to say, I was not writing this story. FWTW, you never really used Tinder, but you did post your golden hour photo up there and scrolled the faces sometimes with your then BFFs, ex-BFFs since break. To be fair, you all made the spring break plan together, the way you did everything, like working together last summer at Chili Cow Ice Cream on Mass Ave in Arlington, Mass. 100 flavors, ice cream in every color. Granddad said you'll be artistic like him because of your love of colors. You often dressed in peachy golds, like peachy keen ice cream, which you gorged on, gaining 5 pounds by August. Losing that weight by fall counted as a crisis to you, the ex-you, the one who'd be a beauty someday. Only one day will never come. Not for Granddad, who is never seen in our family's best photos because he's always taking them. Not for you, because you'll never look at your face after April 8th, 2020 and see beauty. Yeah, maybe you'll see a pretty made-up face, but it's a mask. Like the cloth face mask you pulled on, slipping out of the house the first Sunday of June 2020 for what you told your zoned out mom was just one more bike ride. One dumb decision is how mom and your school counselor said you should look at the whole spring break thing. You didn't mean to hurt anyone, especially not Granddad. Not that hurt is the word. And I'll stop that section and just say before I go to what she's biking toward, that her story, her backstory is that she unwisely went to spring break in Florida in 2020 and wound up contracting COVID, which people barely knew what it was at that point, and wound up accidentally infecting her grandfather who died. And like so much we remember, or we don't remember, I think COVID's gone down the memory hole, but, she wound up having to say goodbye to him on FaceTime. You couldn't see the people in person, just all the horror of that. So dealing with that, and what she's doing on her bike on this particular day is she's biking. They're having car parade graduation, yet another thing that, we remember from the COVID times. And so she is biking into Arlington Center, even though she's been kind of hiding out, very depressed in her home, and isn't graduating herself unless she finishes her incompletes, which is what this paper is one of. So I'm just going to read the car parade graduation scene where she really reaches a low point. You panted behind your mask as you biked into Arlington Center and saw them up ahead, gathered on the street corners along Mass Ave, leading up to Arlington High. Clusters of friends and family stood on each corner, some dressed up, some not, some masked, most not, some holding goofy, oversized congrats graduate balloons. Many held cell phones at the ready, poised to shoot. All faced the street. No one turned as you glided your bike to a stop in the bike lane, then wheeled your bike to the back of a smallish crowd bunched together by not your average Joes, where you used to gather after games. Not your average graduation, a dad said loudly to scattered laughs. Drive-by diplomas. They're coming, a mom voice, luckily none you recognized, called out. You froze, keeping well behind the crowd, bowing your heavy helmeted head, actually freaking praying no one saw you, recognized you. You kept your hand on your bike handlebar because you can touch a bike lightly and it obeys. Balanced beside you, ready to whiz you off, distant cheers arose like a parade without live music, or no, faintly different rock songs played from different cars, so it sounded all mixed up, jangly. Your stomach churned. Shit, what if you threw up? You swallowed hard, remembering throwing up your pink Cosmos into the toilet of the condo bathroom of your ex-friend's ex-father, who never did show up in Florida. Blame my dad, Anna, let's call her friend A, insisted to you when she pulled you aside at Granddad's funeral, the funeral she had no business even attending, but at least she did, unlike friends B through D. They all stopped talking to you after you blew up at them the last time you Zoomed together, when they asked you not to mention Granddad dying of COVID on like Twitter and shit, which you, coward that you are, didn't wind up doing anyways, not wanting to be known as Arlington's typhoid whoever. So you quit Twitter and kind of quit school too. And now you may not graduate at all. Not that anyone in your COVID-19 class got a real graduation ceremony, got to walk. Instead, Arlington High class of 2020 formed a car parade. Decorated cars and SUVs rolling up Mass Ave, closing in on you, everyone blowing horns, yelling at friends and family. On the curbs, strains of Cardi B and BTS mixing with Billie Eilish from the Green-Headed Girls. Go Spy Ponders, not green-haired cheerleaders chanted from their own corner. Guys you used to like waved in the Arlington High Spy Ponder hockey shirts they'd been so proud to earn that wouldn't mean much after today. The drama geeks in sparkle swung rainbow flags, and the shy kids smiled stiffly from back seats. Student government kids hoisted Black Lives Matter signs. A hailstorm of car horns, dueling soundtracks, noisemakers, shouts, everyone cheering but you. In your old helmet and new mask, you stood watching like a masked death dude in The Mask of the Red Death, stalking Prince Prospero through the trippy rooms of his own palace, each room a different bizarro color. In Orlando, the linked hotel suites at the Saturday night party flashed with strings of colored lights, multicolored, not a different color for each different room, which would have been cool. Cool, too, if you'd all dropped dead amidst dancing and hooking up, instead of an end worse than pose. Death lives on and on like car after car of kids you barely knew, a whole lifetime of days ahead, knowing if you hadn't gone to the goddamn break, death in the form of you might never have seized your granddad, who would be here at your non-graduation. Your dad was going to come, but when he found out you weren't even graduating, he canceled the trip. You almost phoned friend A to bitch to her about that, him, her dad, even worse. If her rich Cuban dad hadn't invited you all to his bachelor condo, would Granddad be here towering above the other picture takers? Would you be graduating, you wondered, just as, like black magic, you saw them? Holy shit, ex-friends A through D rolling toward you, bopping their heads to Taylor Swift, crammed atop the back seat of friend D's convertible, waving like they're all Miss America. Ex-friend D at the wheel, eyes fixed straight ahead. At least D for driver hadn't spotted you yet. You turned in panic, guiding your bike off the curb, meaning to jump on your bike and speed away, but you froze as the girl's car passed. You stood there exposed beside your bright yellow bike. So of course, you dummy, your waving ex-friend saw you. First, shit, friend B slowed her wave, then nudged friend A, Anna, the close to you, so you had to meet friend A's shocked, made-up stare. Her full dark hair blown out extra big, like yours would have been today. Her rounded, black-lined eyes locking your own bared blue eyes, the one part of your face not hidden by your helmet plus mask. Friend B had already turned her blonde hair extensioned head away to wave to the other side of the street, B for bitch, but friend A burst into a scared smile. She waved at, not toward you. She even, you couldn't be sure it happened so fast, waved you over, gestured you to follow, to bike into the parade somehow and climb onto the car like nothing happened, like they'd even let you. Friends B through D rolling on by. A boat-sized Cadillac of jocks followed, blowing obnoxiously loud air horns, the guys who you girls used to deem too dumb to live. Congrats, folks shouted gamely from your curb. Good luck, dudes. They're gonna need it, sarcastic dad voice called out above the rest. The parade was moving on, the cheers more muted for the straggling final cars. Soon the moms and dads and restless siblings would turn and see you, though no one knew you were deaf, except your ex-besties, the lucky ones who'd tested negative, who had rolled on, graduating without you. Friend B turning away like you weren't even there. You remounted your bike, mad at that. You could be a bitch on wheels today, too. Helmeted head low, you pedaled into the bike lane. The rear cars of the parade still visible a block ahead. Two police cars rode right behind them with their blue lights flashing in muzzy sun, like the multicolored hotel suite lights in Florida, hypnotic. You biked toward those lights. A parked car pulled out, almost clipping you. The Mass Ave traffic matter-of-fact resumed. Screw that. You were the tail end of the graduation parade, only no one knew it. Just like no one at Prince Prospero's party knows at first that death is coming for us all. The blue lights kept blinking, urging you on, but you didn't want to be trailing alongside the parade in the damn bike lane. You wanted to be in the parade, zigzaggedly fast, like you'd pictured doing all spring. You veered out of the bike lane into the lane of cars that had resumed rumbling down Mass Ave. Hey, a mad mom voice yelled behind you, brakes screeching like a scream. Her horn blared, a big no. Your bike wobbled in its sound waves. What a dumb idea to chase the parade, to veer onto Mass Ave, trapped now in traffic, too dumb to live. You're out of lane, the mad mom hollered. No shit, Sherlock. She pounded her horn again, this time staccato style, out, 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 like your pulse when you lay awake at night, lately, wishing for sleep that would never end. Your head dizzy, you tightened your sweaty hold on your handlebars. Did the dumb deserve to die? Did you? Your heart pumped in your chest like it wanted out, out, out. Should you just veer over that final line, the solid yellow one, smashing straight into the oncoming cars? You braced your body, daring yourself to do it, wrenched the handlebars, crossed the line when you felt a ping, a tiny silent explosion. Your iPhone vibrating? Mom? Or somehow you sensed this, not mom, someone else? Granddad, you thought, as you slowed your bike, slowed it too fast, but you had to check your texts. Your last clear fought before the mom car behind you and your rear jaw. The mom breaks, scream. You scream too through your mask, jolting forward, losing hold. And I'll stop there.
All right. God, I love that story. And we got about 10 minutes worth of questions, so I'm going to go right to them. So 2020 seems so far away. Now, did you write these pieces during that time or upon reflection?
Well, Tim, like both. Like that one I definitely wrote during 2020, like right when I was hearing these stories of people having to deal with having given COVID to someone and, all these older people dying. And yeah, I was writing that right in the midst of it. And right after having seen that parade, I did see the graduation parade from Arlington High School, and it was touching and sad. Other ones it was years later, but I kept coming back to, I think about almost half of them have at least some reference to COVID in them. So some of them, it was a couple years later, but definitely I wound up writing a lot of stuff. That movie that you saw, which doesn't overtly mention COVID, but it has some themes of isolation and so on. And, we wrote that during COVID. So I definitely was writing a lot.
Now, did you write any before COVID, then revise them into that scenario?
Yes, I did. I actually did. Yeah, I have a couple that, I was so obsessed with the COVID theme, and it wouldn't work for every story, but in my opinion, some of them it kind of made them I don't know, more urgent or something. So yeah, I did do that. I always put, people who are, writers here notice, like, you put in the acknowledgments, appeared sometimes in a different form in the magazines, because I don't know about you, Tim, but I keep revising
Oh, yeah.
things, so often they're different in a lot of ways.
So you've written screenplays, movie, theater plays. Now you're back to short stories. Do you consider the short story your sweet spot?
Well, my first book won the Iowa Short Fiction Prize, and that was thrilling. I have 3 short story books, and I like short stories. I like all writing. I like scripts and fiction, and I write my heart out whatever I'm writing, and theater and rock opera, whatever, learning to write lyrics. But I do like short stories, Tim. I do. Yeah, they're their own little thing, and I like them kind of better than novels. Novels are so you know, um, it, you know, exhausting. Someone said a novel's like a giant airplane and it all has to work to take off, whereas I think, I don't know, short stories are a little simpler.
Now, during your story you just read, I love the imagery. I could see everything so clearly. But it's also a strength of yours is the drive of the narrative. So when you find yourself revising, what do you find you end up needing to, in other words, which comes more naturally to you, and what do you have to find that you have to beef up?
Well, I have to cut back a lot. I write, like, because I describe everything so much, I have to cut back a lot. I depend on my people, Anne and Gail and Deborah Spark and others who read my things to really help me with that, Tim, really help me with, editing down. And, narrative drive, like, I'm glad you mentioned that, because something I feel as a writer is I'm always trying to just feel if the narrative drive's slacking in some place. And, it's hard to feel by yourself. You really need your readers, but that is something I try to watch for. And if I feel it, trying to tighten it up or just totally cut out something that might be, interfering with the thread.
And also in the book, you write in a lot of different points of view. This story in particular, begins in that, the youthful point of view. Is that something that you have to think about a lot, like arduously, or is it just like, I'm in this mindset, I can just go?
Well, for me, like, different writers have different things they like to do or can do. I for whatever reason, I'm kind of arrested development or something. I have a teenage mindset. I had just, when I wrote this, I had been driving a carpool for a group of teenagers for years. And, when you're driving a carpool, you're like invisible. You're like the elderly chauffeur and, and they're talking. And before that, I was driving a carpool full of younger kids. So I felt like I had a lot of kid voices in my head. I've, been a mom, these same years. So the teenage voice, I like teenage voices. That one to me, just, I would have a harder time doing like really older people.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump around a little bit and talk about your recent career and some of your some stuff that goes further back. So when I was watching, I'll show you mine, and
Mm-hmm.
it's very much like a two-person play, and at times it's almost like a one-person play. Did it
Mm-hmm.
start as a? Did you envision it on a stage?
That's a good question. I actually co-wrote it with two other writers, and um, no, it was envisioned as a film, but it could be on a stage. It's very contained, um, and it's unusual to have a film. And COVID played a role in this because we had different versions, many different versions of this, a version that had other characters, all sorts of things, but it wound up being done as these two people talking, and we had cartoon flashbacks, we have porn cartoon interludes, we
Yes.
call them porn cartoons, and like because it was shot during COVID, and they were looking for something that could be shot safely, with two people, and someone says, so, oh, there's a question on screen, where can we see your movie? Oh, thank you for asking, Liz Scott. You can see it kind of all over, which is a great thing about movies. It did get picked up for distribution. It was shown briefly in theaters, but now it's on, goodness, Amazon Prime,
I saw
Apple
it on
TV,
Prime.
Peacock, all sorts of places. So pretty much you can go on your thing and search it, and you can find it, and that's an exciting thing about movies. And I also saw a question from someone saying, why did I pick second person? Is it second person? I get confused. The you voice. That is a very good question too. I know there are writers who don't like the you voice, but I do like the you voice. I do like it. I've used it. Part of my first novel, A Four-Sided Bed, is done, I guess, epistolary, you'd say, in letters that are to a you. So for some reason, maybe because it's theatrical, a lot of plays, monologues, and things like that are written in a you voice where they're talking directly to the audience. So I just like that voice. I don't I'm trying to think. There probably are other stories in the collection that have that voice. So if you don't like it, that fair warning there. But I do like it. I like the you voice, and I like close third person, where it's really like close, almost like a first person.
I've got a secret question in a private message from DeWitt Henry.
Oh gosh, DeWitt.
Does Elizabeth see herself as social? Sorry, do you see yourself as social or cultural critic? And does the COVID motif seem to talk back to worlds according to such writers in the American tradition, like Salinger and Nine Stories?
Oh
And then
wow.
there's a follow up, but why don't you start with those?
Well, I love DeWitt's questions. They're always so, he's the best read person ever. I would say, that's funny, DeWitt, that you should mention that, because I was just thinking about Salinger. I was trying to remember who called this teenage girl Mucklemouth, and she was so fun to kiss, and she was Mucklemouth, and then I thought that was J.D. Salinger in Catcher in the Rye. I was just thinking that today. Just so he is definitely. Oh my gosh, what a voice! That sticks in everyone's mind. And I would say, I'm not sure I'm a cultural critic exactly, but I definitely am very attuned to the culture. I have a lot of pop culture references in my work. I'm a news junkie, unfortunately. I keep up but too much with my fellow sufferer, Marianne, keep up with the current horror stories, and so that kind of thing. I love movies, love soap operas, so I have a lot of cultural clutter in my head. And I do sometimes, I think, kind of satirize it. I don't know if I've never been comfortable, Tim, I don't know if you've done this, being a critic. Like, I've written about 2 reviews in my life. I don't like doing it. I don't like to criticize other writers' work. So I don't know.
So speaking about pop culture, you did a lot of work around Nancy Kerrigan and Tanya Harding, and the
Yeah.
work almost gained as much traction as the actual story itself. Were you surprised at that fact?
Well, I thank you for mentioning that because it's quite thrilling. Yes, there's a lot of interest, especially, we in the years before COVID, and then there was a big pause, I think, in the general theater world during COVID. And we actually do have a production of Tanya and Nancy coming up, a new production in North Carolina. There was a ton of interest in the fact that we were writing on first an opera, then a rock opera about that. Just all kinds of people. That is one of those news stories, Tim, and this is something I look for as a writer, is some of these stories just take hold of you. Like, I was obsessed with that story, and I think different people get obsessed with different news stories, and that I tap into those in all kinds of ways. Sometimes the story's going on in the background. With that one, I wound up actually writing the girls using some of their own words, which is in the book. Actually, the libretto for the chamber opera, Tanya and Nancy, is in the book, and almost all the things that they sing in that libretto are real things they said in public domain, in interviews, and you just, it's stranger than fiction, but there it is.
You had real opera singers perform this, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've had it done as an opera with great singers and as a rock opera, multiple productions. Yeah, all kinds of people. You can, if you're curious about the rock opera, if you look up streamingmusicals.com, there is a film that my brother, Bill, who might be watching, is a great videographer, filmed it in New York City at 54 Below. It's got an all Broadway cast, and it's the concert version of the show. So it's shorter and in front of our audience. But I'm so glad that we have that film of it, because it was something. And, in the rock opera, our composer said he liked to put the opera in rock opera. And, we have a real opera singer. There's moments when, in particular, Nancy, why me, so yeah, all that. But it's fun to watch that, the concert version.
Well, it's such a pleasure to hear you and to listen to you answer some wonderful questions. Here's the book, everybody. It's The Drama Room. It's a wonderful, wonderful cover. Pierian Springs Press, and some of our other books are in the small window to the right. Buy them at your favorite indie bookstore and
Yeah.
or bookshop.org. And thank you so much for being on here.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for watching and giving me this chance. There's a little.
And if anyone's watching on the Facebook live stream, you'd like to come in for the open mic, just use the link. I'll be happy to let you in. And
Yeah,
thanks for
I
watching
want to
there.
see. Yeah, I want to see some